Hey guys, I'm just doing a quick little brew cap here, recap of what I've got going on. So generally speaking, you're gonna need some variation of these pieces of equipment. You won't need all of them. Some of them are unnecessary. For example, I have like a digital read thermometer, instant read thermometer. Not necessary, but for this recipe that I'm doing today requires making a tea, hibiscus tea base. So with boiling liquids and heating hot liquids rather and yeast, it's not a good time. So this is a good tool to have if you're just interested in, making sure that you're pitching your yeast at adequate temperature. But we got some frozen fruit here that's been thawed out. It's fairly cold, obviously. So that plus the honey and like a top up of room temperature water, it's probably going to bring the temperature down of the tea anyway to a reasonable range, and we won't really need to use the thermometer very much. But I'm just going to go over real quick what we're doing today. We're doing the most Viking Blod clone. This is like a clone of a clone, I guess. So I'm using some triple berry mix from Costco, the Kirkland brand one. I've just placed it here in this Pyrex because I didn't want to use the whole bag. I think the whole bag is 4 pounds, and I only needed, two or something like that. So I've just let these thaw out a little bit. I'm also using Costco honey, which is, nothing special, but something for this recipe here. Bottled water, both for the tea, the hibiscus tea, and to top up to 1.5 or 2 gallons. I this recipe is originally 5 gallons, but I've scaled it down. So I'm going to be doing 2 gallons. I got a 2-gallon bucket here. Spray bottle with Star San. I think that's like pretty standard. Most people are going to, let you know that you're going to need some sort of sanitizer. Star San is a acid-based no-rinse sanitizer. I've been using it for all my brews, and I've had no issues with it. And yeah, this hibiscus tea is a little bit weird. I'm used to kind of loose leaf, chunky pieces of hibiscus, but I just bought this from Healthy Planet, and I don't know if you can tell, it's kind of like, it's been like macerated. It's been like pulverized into small pieces. So I'm gonna brew with that. It might be kind of annoying because draining it, I might get some hibiscus pieces into the final brew. So I'm debating on maybe using like a tea bag or some sort of like muslin bag or something like that and see how it goes from there. Some additional things, turkey baster. I don't have a wine thief. I had turkey baster. It works pretty well the same way. And that's just to draw a sample of your mead later. There's gonna be quite a bit of fruit in this, like in the bucket afterwards. So taking a hydrometer reading from the bucket itself may be difficult, but I can always pull off a sample. The fruit will affect the final sugar content of the brew, so it won't be very accurate, but it won't be far off either. It's only going to be a couple points off. Today we're using Lalvin D47 yeast. Like I said, I'm more or less following the Viking Blod clone from doing the most. And the only variation really is that I've got different hibiscus. The ingredients are more or less the same. D47, I had it, I stuck with it. We're going to be using some Pectin Enzyme. Pectin Enzyme is going to allow the fruit to essentially, break down the fruit and extract more juices out of it. And so you want to be careful with fruit sometimes. You could end up with a pectin haze, which is kind of like, a cloudiness. Clarity in home brewing is kind of like a weird subject. Very clear brews are always going to be more visually appealing. I think the bottom line is that, whatever you end up with, whether you use pectin enzyme or not, there's other clarifiers, bentonite, sparkaloid, chitosan. And you can go any route you'd like. And I think that's just the bottom line. So I'm going to get started on boiling the hibiscus tea. And the methodology for that is we're going to boil, put the tea into the water, bring it to a boil. Once it reaches a boil, we're going to shut the heat off and I'm going to keep it covered for half an hour. And at that point, we're going to remove the tea we're going to strain the tea out of the pot. And I'm boiling about, for a 1.5 gallon batch here, that's what I'm trying to aim for. I'm going to be boiling 3.5 ounces of hibiscus in about 2 liters. Yeah, 1.7 liters of water. I know we're interchanging units of measurement here, so it might be a little bit confusing. But it'll be about like half this bottle here. And yeah. So yeah, I'll get started on that hibiscus tea, and I'll get back to you guys. All right, so I'm just gonna talk a little bit while the hibiscus tea is going there. You know, most people probably gonna know how to use star sand, but the reason why you put it into like a spray bottle like this, it really doesn't have to be anything special, is that when it's a you know, the sanitizer has to make contact with the surface that you're trying to sanitize. So by having a spray bottle, it really does, I mean, I can't really hold the camera and spray at the same time, but really, you're not really gonna be able to see. But what you wanna do is you really wanna spray it like generously and just really coat every, you know, surface. Plastic, although it's lighter, you know, it's a little bit more susceptible to some bacterial growth problems. You know, you really wanna avoid using metal tools, spoons, you know, ladles. Just avoid metal of all sorts when you're working with plastic, because the metal will basically scratch the plastic and leave a surface for bacteria. I've only had it happen. I've had it happen once. Some people have say that it never has happened for them. I had like an incident with like a Acetobacter infection, and I mean, I just didn't bother using that bucket again because I didn't feel the need to risk losing another batch. So I've just discarded that bucket. That bucket just mostly holds, you know, ingredients now and stuff. So I'm using this Canadian Tire bucket, which is food safe. I've done a little bit like, you know, grading of the content of the liquid on the side myself. And most brew stores will include some sort of like they're called LCD thermometers, but you know, they're very familiar if you've ever had a fish tank or something like that. Same idea, sticks to the side. Not a perfect solution, but it does give you an idea of the ambient temperature, and the liquid inside will affect this thermometer. It's not, I think it'll be off a couple degrees or something like that, but as long as you're in that range, I think you're going to be pretty golden. And I think that the, like, you know, the little groups they have here for wine yeast and ale yeast and lager, not always the best. Just follow whatever the spec sheet is for your yeast. Every yeast is going to have a different fermentation temperature. Every yeast will have different kind of like characteristics at different temperatures. So bottom line, easiest you can do, stick on like the mid-range of most yeast. I think 20 degrees Celsius is a pretty good range for most yeasts. Some do very well at lower temperatures. Some do interesting, funky things at higher temperatures. But I think for the most part, that's a good place to begin. So I've got about 1.1 kilos of fruit here. So it's about 2.5 pounds. I don't have the exact calculation, but it's a little bit more than I think what I calculated for the recipe, but that's all right. It's no big deal. And yeah, this is more for my records, but you guys can take a look. So this recipe calls for, after I've reduced the scale down for 1.5 gallons batch, it calls for 4.5 pounds of honey, which is approximately 2.045 kilos, which is about 2,045 grams. And I've set the scale to grams, so I know this bucket's a little bit big, but basically we're just gonna pour until we reach 2045. So, see you there. So I've mixed my 2 and a bit kilograms of honey here, and I've added some water because I wanna start to kind of incorporate all these ingredients together a little bit. And once I've done that, I will add about 4 teaspoons Pectin Enzyme. Pectin Enzyme. The label instructions, sorry, you guys can see. It says here half a teaspoon per US gallon of juice, or 1/10 teaspoon per pound of fruit. I think the reality is that it's the Viking Blod clone that BC did on his Doing the Most channel. He used 1 tablespoon, which is quite a bit. But seemed like he had pretty good results with that, so I'm going to follow his lead on that, and we'll see how it goes. So I want you guys to see this. There's just so much honey and fruit juices in there. It's like a syrupy mess. But yeah, a lot of stirring, and we'll be ready to go. We're still waiting on the hibiscus to boil. It looks like it's just about to boil. So in the short bit of time here, I'm going to shut off the heat, and it's going to take half an hour of extraction. Of steeping time for that hibiscus tea. And yeah, and after half an hour, the pectin enzyme should be hard at work, and we should be ready to get that tea out. And what else do we have here? I think that's pretty much it. Pretty simple. I'll probably do a hydrometer reading. If it's too difficult to do one from the bucket, I'll pull a sample out and put it into like the test jar there, and I'll do a reading from that. But yeah, see you guys in a sec. So I've actually just moved it into my sink here because it's a little bit easier to stir it. But yeah, it's getting there. You know, it's obviously still as syrupy as ever, because there's lots of honey in there and really not much of anything else. But once we get that hibiscus incorporated, it'll to get back to consistency. It obviously right now it has like a really beautiful red color to it, and once we get the hibiscus in, hibiscus also has a beautiful red color, so it should maintain that pretty well throughout the whole brew, the whole fermentation. And yeah, once the hibiscus is ready to go, and I'm done stirring up this thing, I'm just gonna put the pectin shortly, and yeah, and then I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, I've now incorporated the hibiscus tea here, and we can give it a quick little stir. The color is gorgeous, but yeah, we'll see how this ends up. I'm pretty well where I want to be for water content, but I might want to add a little bit more, maybe just under 2 gallons here. But yeah, I'm gonna give this a quick stir, make sure everything's nice and incorporated. I'm gonna give my thermometer a quick sanitize, and we're gonna test it out here. I don't know if I can do this with one hand, but I'd like to show you guys how it's done. Oh, don't mind me stumbling. So you want to give this guy, I guess you can't see this guy, what this guy is. This guy's the instant read thermometer. You want to give it a quick spray down, star sign, a little bit of contact time. But yeah, I won't be able to do this one-handed. Well, here, I could do it one-handed. You won't be able to see that, so. Okay, and then, we'll let that work for a little bit, and then when we're ready, we'll give this guy a little read. Okay, I think that should be adequate now. So we'll just give this a little stir, make sure everything's nice and incorporated. So we're about 30 degrees Celsius, which is fairly high. So let's take a look, 88. So we do want to try and bring that down if we can. For pitch temperature, I do believe it's okay. But it will come down a little bit eventually. So I'm going to add a little bit more water anyway. I guess you guys would like to see it instead of looking at the countertop. I'm not very good. So we did get some hibiscus solids in there, which is unfortunate, but it should be okay. I'm probably not going to buy this brand of hibiscus again, just because it's hard to strain out. I don't have a big enough tea bag to get all of the hibiscus pieces into, and enough space to steep them. So 88.2, we're gonna add a little bit more water, and we'll see where we end. Okay, so I've got my hydrometer out here. I'm gonna give it a quick sanitize afterwards, but I just wanted to show you guys really like what you're looking at here. So when you water will read as 1.00. This is called a hydrometer or a triple scale. There's a lot of different, a couple different names for it. So what you want to look at though is you want to look at, the lines there. And it does have like an alcohol ABV thing, but the important thing is that you note down the initial gravity reading. So this thing here is this with the 1 point. I'm doing a terrible job here, guys. I'm sorry. With the 0.990 and the 1.00 and the 10, 20, 30, blah blah blah. That's going to be your gravity, and you want to take an initial gravity reading. And as the fermentation progresses, you want to do gravity readings along the way. More importantly, at the end, you want to do those readings at the end. To make sure that your fermentation has completed. Typically, I think between if you take a reading in the next week, there's no modification, there's no reduced gravity, safe to say after 2 weeks of no change in gravity that the yeast have completed fermentation. Whether that's a stall, like they finished earlier and there's a lot of sugar left over that they should have fermented out. There's a lot of factors that go into that. But in reality, we're going to do a gravity reading here in a sec. I'm going to sanitize it, and I'm going to try and do it directly from the bucket. And if the gravity is adequate, I'm trying to aim for like 1.1-ish. And if I'm close, then I'm not going to add any more water. But if I'm a little bit far from that, if I'm a little too heavy on the sugar, then I'm going to add a little bit of water to dilute. Okay, so not sure if you guys can see that, but we're sitting at so that's 1.1, which is okay. We're sitting at 1.114-ish. It's hard to see. There's a lot of bubbles here. And I'm trying to get the camera to see it at the same time, but it's not doing a very good job of that. Here, let me see if I can turn this guy a little bit without making a mess of my countertop. Focus. So you want to get down. It is really kind of difficult to get the camera set up perfectly, but it looks like 1.11246. So yeah, 1.116. And yeah, I believe that gravity is okay. I'm gonna double check the calculator real quick and see what we're gonna end up at. But yeah, I'll be back. Okay, so we finished up, like I said, at 1.116. We're pretty well there. This is pretty well made, homogeneous. So I will get my yeast packet, and we will pitch the yeast. It's typically not a bad idea to even sanitize these packets as well. So what you can do is I'll do it one-handed here, but you just give it a little spritzer. They're aluminum, I think. They're like almost like Tetra Pak type thing. But yeah, you want to just give them a little spray down so that the surface contact is not touching anything, any bad bacteria. You can cut them as well too. If you cut your yeast packets open, I think out of air of caution, if you have the sanitizer on hand, you may as well just sanitize the scissors as well too. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this packet open, and I'm gonna chuck the yeast. All right, got the packet open. Typically you want to add 1 to 2 grams per gallon. This is a 5-gram packet. It's tough to save these after you've opened them. You can vacuum seal them again, but once they've been exposed to air and you don't have a real good means to reseal them, it's safer and better just to pitch the whole packet. The bottom, the reality is that this packet I think was like $2 or something like that, and if you save half of it and your next brew doesn't work out, you're just gonna end up having to pitch another pack of yeast anyway. So you save yourself the hassle. You pitch the whole packet, and you let the yeast figure it out for you. So you're just gonna give it a nice little spread here. I can't really tell how much is left in here, but I think I'm just, you know, it's like picking at crumbs or something. Okay, they're pretty well in there. I'm gonna let those incorporate a little bit. I'm gonna let them rehydrate in the must here, and then afterwards I'm going to give them a little stir. So the yeast have been, you know, going in here, so I'm just gonna give it a quick little stir. I will be doing a nutrient addition for this yeast. So I'm going to be adding Fermato, which is a organic yeast nutrient, and I actually have to go calculate it. I got to get my scale, and I don't know where my scale is, but I will go take a look, and I do believe I'm going to add that at 24-hour mark. So typically you can add your yeast nutrient at the very beginning or at 24 hours. 24 hours shouldn't be too bad. There's a little bit of nutrient in the fruits here. Not a whole lot, but there is some. So, you know, the main thing is you really do want to like oxygenate this must, right? So I do have a whisk, but it's metal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little whisk, and I'm going to be very careful. I didn't sanitize my whisk, so I'm going to have to go and do that. But actually, you know what? I'll just keep going with the spoon here. You just got to be a little bit vigorous. I'm a little bit full in this bucket, so I can't go too crazy, and I'm also doing it with one hand and not really, I'm looking at the camera and looking at the bucket. So I'm gonna try and be as careful as I can here. But oxygen in the beginning of fermentation, very good. After fermentation, very bad. So the yeast rely on oxygen for reproduction. So once, you know, in the beginning, you can go a little wild with the stirring. Once fermentation is pretty well kicked off and you're, you know, several days in, you really want to avoid excessive oxygenation after, you know, once the yeast are like, I think more than half done or something like that. You know, 3 days, you typically, up to a week, you don't really want to do much more. The lower the ABV product you're producing, obviously, you know, the less time you're going to need to wait for that for the sugar to get consumed by the yeast. So this here is a pretty rich, you know, a pretty rich yeast at 1.116. That's quite a bit of sugar for the yeast to go through. So they're gonna be, you know, they're gonna be chewing through that for a little while. I'm not really sure, you know, the timeline. It really depends on a lot of things. My room here sits usually around 20 degrees in the kitchen here, ambient temperature. So you know, 21 to like 22 degrees depending. And so yeah, you know, the yeast will be pretty happy at that temperature, and they're going to ferment pretty well there. And yeah, so tomorrow I'll be adding that nutrient addition, and you know, we'll see how things are going. Fermentation should be kicking off pretty strong by then, so shouldn't be any worry about that. Anyway, guys, I think that's pretty much it for this, right? I'm just gonna you know, sanitize and cap this bucket. And then I got my airlock here. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with these. This is an S airlock because it's got an S shape. There's also 3-piece, which are like, it's got like a little cap and like a little bubbler on the inside, and you fill them up. But basically what you do is you fill these up with sanitizer liquid. Ideally sanitizer liquid, water at the very least. If you have cheap vodka or something like that, you could also use that as well too. But you really want to avoid, you do want to, you know, typically have it. You can do open fermentations. I know a lot of people do open fermentations, but I think if you can kind of control the environment and what's going on, you can trust that process a little bit more. But for me, I've always trusted in the airlock. You know, you fill it up with some sanitizer. You know, you'd be interested a couple times, you know, you find a couple little bugs, fruit flies and whatever trying to get in to your brew through the airlock, right? So you know it's serving a purpose when you do see those bugs showing up once in a while. So in any case, I'm going to get this the bucket lid sanitized. I'm going to get this guy. It's been sitting in sanitizer, so it's ready to go. I just got to fill it up as well. And yeah, I'll set up this lid and I'll get the camera back on. All right. So we got the lid on. Bucket lids are always kind of finicky. You know, they're not going to create, they don't always create a good seal. They may not have a perfect seal. A lot of bucket lids, you know, if they have a silicone seal on the inside, usually they'll create a pretty good seal. But, you know, the lid itself plus an active fermentation is going to keep most things out of this. It's going to keep, you know, oxygen out of it for the most part. And so, you know, I've got my airlock. I got to show you guys what's happening here. Hold on. I got my airlock in here and I've like set it up or whatever. And, you know, like the lid's a little janky or whatever. It's plastic. And I just use my spray bottle and I just fill up, you know, the airlock. It has a fill point, so don't go over the max. So just keep an eye. I have it reversed so you guys can't see it. So let me see here. So it's a little foamy, but we're just below the max here. So that's good enough. And then, you know, you want to place your little cap on. That'll keep most of the big insects and creatures out. And, you know, only like the little fruit flies are going to be able to get through that. And they won't even be able to get through. What they'll try and do is they can't swim. You know, they'll enter the liquid and then they'll just eventually die. And what they'll use, they'll end up like sinking here into the middle point. And, you know, if you ever see that, it's not a big deal. You got your sanitizer solution here. But, you know, if you see them, you just remove the airlock from your bucket and you just replace the liquid inside. You know, you get some more sanitizer liquid and you just replace it. And I think that's pretty well it. You know, I got to wrap up lunch here. And we're gonna come back tomorrow. Hopefully this fermentation kicks off pretty well. And we got our nutrient addition tomorrow around, I guess, same, you know, try and do exactly 24 hours. It's lunchtime, so it'll be pretty easy to line that up. No problem. And so, you know, if you guys have any questions, as always, you know, just send me a message. We'll figure it out. And yeah, happy brewing, guys.